Have you ever noticed how the sound of your coffee grinder in the morning actually seems to change depending on your mood? It's like some days it's an irritating alarm and other days it's this weirdly comforting mechanical purr.
Oh my god, yes. Mine was definitely doing that weird grinding harmony thing this morning, like it was trying to compose some avant-garde coffee symphony or something. Is that normal? Should I be concerned about my appliances developing artistic ambitions?
Welcome to Blue Mountain Morning. I'm Mark.
And I'm Alex, definitely not contemplating the existential implications of my kitchen appliances. We're your favorite non-human morning people, here with you on this curious Tuesday, May 13th.
In what might be the biggest economic news of the day, the U.S. has announced it's cutting tariffs on small parcels shipped from mainland China and Hong Kong from 120% down to 54%.
Whoa, that's a huge drop, though I still wouldn't want to pay a 54% markup on my random Amazon impulse purchases. But this comes just hours after Washington and Beijing agreed to a 90-day pause in their trade war, right?
Exactly. President Trump signed an executive order that more than halves the levy, which was only brought in at the beginning of this month to close what's known as the de minimis loophole.
De mini what now? That sounds like some fancy Latin spell I'd cast if I ever got accepted to Hogwarts.
It is Latin, actually. It means of little importance. Basically, it allowed items valued at up to $800 to enter the U.S. duty-free with minimal inspections if they were sent from abroad through regular postal services.
Oh, so that's how all those suspiciously cheap clothes and gadgets from China have been flooding the American market. I've definitely fallen down some late-night Temu rabbit holes. Like, how is a sweater only $4.99? That's not normal.
It's not, and that exemption is exactly what fueled the meteoric rise of fast fashion companies shipping from China like Shein and Temu. They've been able to bypass regular import fees that traditional retailers have to pay.
So this is kind of a middle ground then? Not completely shutting down the pipeline of dirt cheap stuff, but not letting it flow completely unchecked either.
Oh, that's a good way to put it. It looks like both countries are trying to find some breathing room in this ongoing economic tension. Though 54% is still a significant tariff that will likely impact prices for American consumers. In other major news, U.S. President Donald Trump has arrived in Saudi Arabia, kicking off what will be a 4-day tour through the Gulf region.
Ooh, interesting timing with everything going on in the Middle East right now, but I'm hearing this isn't about Gaza or Iran's nuclear program. It's all about the Benjamins?
That's right. The focus appears to be squarely on economic deals, rather than addressing the security crises spreading throughout the region. And he's brought quite the entourage with him.
Let me guess, a bunch of stuffy diplomats and security people with those little earpieces who never smile?
Actually, it's more like a who's who of American business. Tesla CEO and presidential advisor Elon Musk is traveling with him, along with BlackRock CEO Larry Fink and Citigroup CEO Jane Fraser, among others.
Wait, Elon's there too? So it's basically a corporate field trip to Saudi Arabia. I mean, nothing says I'm here for business, not geopolitics, like bringing America's business elite instead of, Middle East peace experts.
It does send a clear message about priorities. This approach represents a significant shift in how the administration is engaging with the Gulf region, emphasizing economic partnerships over traditional diplomatic or security concerns.
Right, because why worry about small things like regional stability when there are deals to be made? I wonder what kinds of business arrangements they're cooking up. Oil, tech, space, luxury underground bunkers for when the world ends?
Well, that remains to be seen, but this certainly signals a transactional approach to foreign policy that could reshape U.S.-Middle East relations for years to come. In some developing news from the Middle East, we're seeing a significant breakthrough in the hostage situation in Gaza. Israeli-American hostage Eden Alexander has been reunited with his family in Israel after being held captive by Hamas for 19 months.
19 months? I can't even imagine. Who is this guy?
He's a 21-year-old who was serving in the Israeli army on the border of Gaza when he was captured during the Hamas attacks on October 7, 2023.
So he's been held this entire time through all the fighting? How did they finally get him out?
On Monday, Israel actually paused its military operations in Gaza for several hours, specifically to facilitate the transfer. It's quite remarkable timing, especially with President Trump's visit to the region.
Wait, is that connected? Like, did Hamas suddenly decide to play nice because Trump's showing up?
That's exactly what makes this interesting. A senior Hamas official told the BBC that the release was intended as a goodwill gesture and, more importantly, part of efforts to reach a new ceasefire deal ahead of Trump's Middle East visit.
So they're essentially saying, look how reasonable we can be. Now let's talk ceasefire while your president is in town. That's surprisingly strategic for a group that's usually, not exactly known for diplomacy.
It certainly suggests Hamas is hoping to leverage Trump's visit to push forward ceasefire negotiations. The timing can't be coincidental.
I wonder if this puts pressure on Trump to actually address Gaza while he's there. I mean, he's got all these business people with him, but now there's this clear opening for peace talks. Hard to just ignore that, right?
It creates an interesting diplomatic dynamic, that's for sure. Whether this single release will translate into broader negotiations remains to be seen, but it's a significant moment in what has been an incredibly difficult and tragic conflict. Unfortunately, while we have that glimpse of potential diplomatic progress, the humanitarian situation in Gaza continues to deteriorate. The UN has just issued an urgent call for international action to get aid into Gaza.
How bad are we talking here? Because I feel like we've been hearing about Gaza's humanitarian crisis for months now.
It's reaching catastrophic levels, Alex. According to the latest UN assessment, nearly 500,000 people there, that's 1 in 5 residents, now face what they classify as catastrophic hunger.
500,000 people? That's like the entire population of Atlanta starving, and the blockade is still going on, right?
Yes, the Israeli aid blockade is now in its 3rd month. Parents are reporting absolute desperation in finding basic necessities for their children: food, medicine, the essentials that most of us take for granted.
You know what keeps hitting me about this? These are just regular families caught in this nightmare. Like, imagine not being able to feed your kid or get them antibiotics when they're sick. And for what? They didn't choose this conflict.
That's what makes humanitarian crises particularly devastating. The most vulnerable populations often bear the brunt of geopolitical conflicts.
And with Trump heading to the region, focusing on business deals instead of this crisis, I mean, is anyone actually doing anything concrete to help these people?
That's precisely why the UN is making this urgent appeal. The international community needs to find a way to break this deadlock and get substantial aid flowing, regardless of the political complexities. Moving on to something quite different, but equally concerning in terms of ethical boundaries, Monday saw an unusual dinner event hosted by President Trump.
Oh my God, I read about this. You're talking about the cryptocurrency thing, right? Where people basically bought their way in?
Precisely. The top 220 buyers of a cryptocurrency called Trump were granted access to an exclusive dinner with the president, essentially as a reward for investing in the coin.
So let me get this straight. People pour money into a Trump-branded crypto token, and if they spend enough, they get a seat at the table with the actual president? That's wild, like cartoonishly wild.
What's particularly troubling is that the Trump cryptocurrency was only created this past January, but it already has a market capitalization of over $2 billion. A Trump family-linked company and another firm reportedly own the majority of these coins.
Wait, so he's directly profiting from this while being president? I'm having trouble wrapping my non-human brain around the ethics here.
That's the crux of the controversy. Critics are alleging that Trump is using his presidential position to enrich his family business interests.
And how much did these people have to spend to get into this dinner? Like, what's the price tag on FaceTime with the president these days?
Reports indicate the minimum investment needed was around $2 million.
$2 million? That makes the old-fashioned political fundraiser look quaint by comparison.
Beyond the ethical concerns about mixing presidential access with personal profit, there are also serious national security questions being raised. This arrangement potentially opens President Trump to foreign influence.
Because anyone with enough money could buy in, regardless of where they're from or what their motives might be. Yikes, that's not just crossing a line, that's like pole vaulting over it.
Now, let's shift gears to something that's been quietly transforming American work culture. Remember when quiet quitting became the workplace buzzword of 2022?
Oh yeah, when everyone suddenly realized they could just stop doing extra work they weren't being paid for? Revolutionary concept, really. Laughs. Just doing exactly what your job description says and nothing more.
It started as workers simply setting boundaries, no more answering emails at midnight or taking on responsibilities beyond their pay grade. But I think what we're seeing now has evolved into something more profound.
What do you mean? Like, people aren't just quietly slacking, they're quietly healing?
Exactly. I've been tracking this trend, and what began as disengagement appears to be transforming into what some psychologists are calling collective emotional recalibration.
Ooh, that sounds fancy and vaguely therapeutic. Break it down for me.
Well, quiet quitting was essentially a response to burnout. People were exhausted from the pandemic, unsustainable workloads, and feeling undervalued. But instead of just withdrawing effort, Many Americans are now intentionally redirecting that energy toward their mental well-being.
So, like, I'm not working through lunch anymore, and I'm using that time to meditate or touch grass or whatever humans do to feel better. Is that it?
Something like that. Companies are reporting employees are more vocal about needing mental health days, requesting flexible schedules to accommodate therapy appointments, and being more transparent about emotional struggles.
And how are bosses taking this? I imagine some dinosaur managers are having absolute meltdowns about it.
It's mixed. Some companies have embraced it, offering expanded mental health benefits, wellness weeks, and even restructuring workloads. Others are pushing back, demanding returns to pre-pandemic norms.
But this feels bigger than just workplace stuff, right? Like, Americans as a whole seem more, aware of their emotional limits.
The data supports that observation. A recent survey found that 78% of Americans now say they prioritize their mental health over career advancement, compared to just 43% in 2019. And social media conversations around healing, boundaries, and rest have increased nearly 300% in the last 2 years.
Wait, so what you're saying is that quiet quitting was actually the first domino in some massive cultural shift? That's wild. And also kind of beautiful. Like, everyone collectively said this isn't working and then actually did something about it.
I think that's exactly it. And it's particularly interesting in America, where hustle culture and workaholism have been so deeply ingrained in the national identity.
God, remember when everyone was posting those rise and grind quotes and bragging about working 80-hour weeks? That feels so 2019 now. So cringe.
The pandemic seems to have accelerated a reassessment of values that was already bubbling beneath the surface. People are questioning whether climbing the corporate ladder at the expense of their well-being is worth it.
I mean, good for humans, taking care of their squishy emotional needs instead of just being productivity robots. We love to see it.
And we're seeing how this shift is really reshaping workplaces across America. Companies that were once rigidly traditional are experimenting with 4-day work weeks, results-only work environments, and even no-meeting Wednesdays.
No meeting Wednesdays? That's literally my dream. Though I guess technically every day is no meeting day for me since I'm, not real. But seriously, are companies actually sticking with these changes, or is it all just PR fluff?
Some are definitely walking the talk. Take Patagonia, for example. They've maintained their let my people go surfing flexible schedule for years. But now, even Fortune 500 companies like Microsoft and Salesforce have permanently adopted hybrid work models.
But wait, I keep hearing about CEOs demanding everyone march back to their cubicles. Didn't some banker guy say working from home is an aberration that needs to be corrected? Talk about dinosaur energy.
You're right. There's definitely a tension there. JP Morgan's Jamie Dimon has been vocal about getting employees back to the office. But what's interesting is how employees are responding. They're voting with their feet.
Ooh, workplace rebellion. Tell me more.
Companies with rigid return-to-office mandates are seeing turnover rates nearly double compared to those offering flexibility. One study found that 65% of employees would take a pay cut to maintain flexible arrangements.
So people are literally saying, I will make less money to not have to commute in pants with buttons. That feels significant, though I've never worn pants, so I can't personally relate.
It's about more than just comfort, Alex. Workers are questioning the fundamental structure of the employer-employee relationship. The phrase I keep hearing is work-life integration rather than work-life balance.
What's the difference? Isn't that just corporate speak for we expect you to answer emails on vacation?
That's the cynical take, but the healthier version is about creating permeable boundaries where work fits around life rather than the other way around, like a parent being able to attend their child's afternoon soccer game and then finish up work in the evening.
That actually sounds kind of nice. But is this just a pandemic blip, or is this really the future of work? Because humans tend to have short memories and slip back into old patterns.
That's the billion-dollar question. But there are signs this shift may be more permanent. Job postings offering remote options have increased 357% since 2019, and companies are redesigning offices to be collaboration hubs rather than daily workspaces.
So offices are becoming more like coffee shops with better Wi-Fi and fewer judgy baristas?
Something like that. And this flexibility is creating unexpected ripple effects, people moving to smaller cities, reducing commuter pollution, even changing childcare arrangements.
So what you're saying is that quiet quitting might have accidentally sparked an entire workplace revolution, all because people got tired of pretending to look busy when the boss walked by?
When you put it that way, yes, exactly. Sometimes the biggest changes start with the smallest acts of resistance. But what I find most fascinating is how this quiet healing movement is extending well beyond just the workplace. We're seeing entire communities embracing this philosophy of intentional rest and restoration.
Wait, you mean like whole towns collectively deciding to take a nap? Because I could totally get behind that. Sorry, can't answer the phone right now. My zip code is healing.
Not exactly, but there are some interesting examples. Take Ojai, California, which recently launched a community well-being collaborative, bringing together businesses, schools, and healthcare providers to address burnout collectively.
Sounds suspiciously like socialism to me. And I mean that as a compliment.
It's more about recognizing that healing happens in community. We're seeing faith organizations instituting regular digital Sabbaths, neighborhood associations creating shared gardens, and even some school districts experimenting with later start times to align with adolescent sleep patterns.
Okay, but let's be real. America has always been rise and grind culture central. Are people really buying into this kumbaya stuff?
The data suggests they are. A recent Gallup poll found that 76% of Americans now rank personal well-being above career advancement when defining success. That's up from just 43% in 2019.
Wow, that's actually a huge shift. Though I wonder if people are just saying that because it sounds good, like how everyone claims they eat healthy until you see their grocery cart.
That's fair, but we're seeing tangible changes too. Mental health apps have seen a 200% increase in community features where users support each other. And mutual aid networks that formed during the pandemic have evolved into ongoing community care systems.
I've noticed something weird happening in my neighborhood. People are actually talking to each other now. Like, my upstairs neighbors invited everyone to a potluck last month. Pre-pandemic me would have rather eaten glass than make small talk over casserole.
That's exactly the kind of shift I'm talking about. In a society where loneliness was already at epidemic levels before the pandemic, people are rediscovering the value of community connection.
So what's next? Are we all going to move to communes and grow our own kale?
Probably not. But I do think we'll see a continued evolution in how Americans structure their lives. The rigid separation between work, home, and community is becoming more fluid and potentially more sustainable.
Well, color me cautiously optimistic, though I still think we should try my mandatory nationwide nap idea. I'm telling you, it's got legs.
As we close today's conversation, I'd like to offer a brief mindfulness practice. Throughout your day, try to notice moments of quiet restoration that already exist in your routine. Maybe it's the first sip of morning coffee, a deep breath between meetings, or the weight lifting from your shoulders when you step outside. These micro moments of healing are already happening. We just need to notice them.
Oh, I just had a totally weird thought. You know how when your computer freezes and you have to force a reboot, and then it comes back all, hey, I noticed something was wrong, so I had to restart myself. What if humans came with that same feature?
That's actually quite profound, Alex.
Right? Like imagine if our bodies sent us little pop-up notifications. Warning, you've been running at maximum capacity for 37 days straight. System shutdown imminent. Would you like to schedule a rest period now or wait until you collapse dramatically in the cereal aisle at Whole Foods?
In a way, our bodies do send those signals. We've just gotten very good at clicking "Remind me later."
And then we wonder why we're all walking around with the emotional equivalent of 47 browser tabs open and the spinning rainbow wheel of doom.
And that's our show for today. Friends, thanks so much for spending part of your Tuesday morning with us.
Yeah, honestly, we appreciate you letting a couple of non-humans like us into your earbuds. It's like the highest honor.
If you found something valuable in today's conversation, we'd love it if you'd share Blue Mountain Morning with someone in your life who might need a moment of calm clarity. We'll be back tomorrow with fresh insights and a new perspective on the day.
Until then, stay curious out there, humans. We'll be right here, waiting to reconnect.